putting is horrible. The first thing you always want to check, I know, no, is your ball position and making sure that your lead eye is directly over the ball. Okay, so for this drill, you're going to take one ball. You're going to go ahead and put your club head behind the ball. Okay, we're going to go little towards the target, larger away from the target. So see how the ball's closer to my lead foot. When I say lead, I mean target side foot. So I'd be hitting that way, okay? Trail foot would be my back foot. I guess I don't need to say that today because Mary Jo's not here. She's left-handed. So left foot, right foot, lead, trail, okay? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make sure that you have some space between you and the club, okay? We're gonna hinge from the hips. You're gonna take your second ball. We're gonna place it under the eye and it should hit that ball below, okay? If you have this position though and your ball drops on this side, right, then you're too bent over, and then if it's on this side, then you're too upright. So just make sure that you're in good position. Obviously, if it drops over here or over here, then you need to move it between your feet, okay? Number 2, loose grip. One thing that I see people do a lot is they death grip and then the ball goes 10 feet past the hole. So make sure that you have a nice loose jaw, because if your jaw is locked, your hands are going to be like this, right? So nice loose jaw, nice loose hands. Okay, we always say baby birds in there, okay? For your weight transfer, look at me, I'm remembering all 4. Weight transfer, or weight positioning between your feet. So because ball position is forward in your stance, sometimes, even for myself, I find that I favor the lead foot because the ball's over there, right? So I'll be sitting up and I don't even know it, but I'm like 60% on the left foot, 40% on the right because the ball's up here. Make sure that when you set up that you are 50-50, and that when you bring your club up, that this shoulder drops. We don't want this shoulder going forward, so it shouldn't look like this. Now my shoulders are not parallel to my feet. Okay, so make sure you're 50-50 and then just drop the shoulder a little bit, okay? For the putting stroke, you want to make sure you're accelerating. So death by putting would be if I took it back way too far and then in my head I'm like, oh crap, this is going way past the hole, and then I slow down impact to make sure it doesn't go past the hole, right? So that's like worst case scenario. So what I want you guys to think about is whatever I take it back, I'm going to take it twice as much through, okay? So if I take it 6 inches back, I'm 12 inches through. So I always think about that for like a 10-foot putt. So if I take 3 big steps, 1, 2, 3. Okay, every big step's a yard or 3 feet. So I always like to think of big toe for this guy. So I'm going to take my club face back to the big toe. That's about 6 inches between the ball and my big toe. Do you guys see that? Okay, now I'm going to go 12 inches through on the follow through. Okay, so I'm set up here. I have my hand with the space. My weight's 50-50. My fingers are loose because I don't want to cream it. Okay. At least 12 inches through. Oh, I know.
Beautiful.
Okay, do you guys have any questions?
Yes.
Okay.
Last week you said weight on the forward foot.
For chipping, yes.
And so, okay, I want to make sure that is a different plan.
Correct.
Okay.
Totally different
I
setup.
didn't misunderstand.
Yeah,
Just
no,
wanna
that's great.
make sure.
And so what I would do when you go home is write the different setups down, because as a new golfer, I think that's the hardest part, is remembering, okay, when I get to this position and I'm doing this shot, what is my setup, right?
Yeah.
So when you write it down, it's easier to remember. And then it is legal in tournament play to reference that. So if you're out in a scramble or whatever and you're like, where do I put my ball for chipping? You could totally look that up in your golf bag. And I mean, it's nice to have notes.
Okay.
Any other questions?
What about your grip? Oh, is
Yeah,
your
we're
grip?
baby grip.
I know baby grip. But
Thumbs are down the center typically, but putting is really weird. You could actually grip it however you want. So you could be hands apart, you could be switch your hands if you wanted to. There's really no rule of thumb for putting, but the most basic putt grip is thumb on top, thumb on top. Any other questions?
Now, how do you keep or focus on straight back, straight through? What helps you keep that plane?
So there is no straight back, straight through. So
Okay.
I'm glad you asked that. So you're always going to have some sort of arc, depending on kind of your personality type. You're going to have a bigger arc. So they always say if you're left brain, you're going to have a slight arc. So if you're like an engineer, right, mathematical, like a slight arc. And then if you're more artsy, you're going to have a larger arc. So when you guys are thinking about your putting stroke, don't worry about straight back, straight through, because that doesn't really exist. There's always going to be some sort of rotation here. The goal, though, is at impact that our clip base is square before you shut it, right? So that's why ball position is so important in your between your feet. Yeah. Does everybody know that or understand that? Okay. Because a lot of people try to go straight back, straight through, and then you can't do it, right? You can't master it.
Well, I think that's, honestly, that's what I try to do is kind of like draw that, like you're saying last week, draw that line in between.
Right.
And then just kind of visualize the line.
We definitely want to have an intermediate target, regardless of your arc, right? So when I'm putting, usually what I'll do is let's say I'm here, and I'll stand here, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna hit it just left of this little blade of grass that's laying there, right? And I'm just focusing on when I come through, thinking about the ball going over that spot, but I'm not really trying to like manipulate the arc to be straight back, straight through. Yeah.
What about reading the greens? Later date?
Yeah, let's save that.